Hello, everybody. This is the Montessori Show, June 2017. I'm Jeanne-Marie Paynel, speaking to you live from San Diego. And Simone is here with me. Hi, Simone.
Hi, Jeanne-Marie. Nice to see you.
And Simone is calling in from Amsterdam. So we've managed to do this pretty well, where it's evening time for Simone, midday for me, and we're welcome, everybody. We have Morven from Scotland who's already here with us. We're going to wait maybe a little bit to see if more people come in. I know we've gotten some good questions for today's show, which is all about setting limits respectfully, mindfully, and such. So
yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, we also we use a lot of the positive discipline tools. So, Jeanne-Marie, do you have one of the books handy?
Yes. I just Jane Nelson just came out with 2 new books. One of which is this one, Positive Discipline Parenting Tools. So it's just specific about going over some of the tools, 49 of the most effective methods, and they're nice because they're kind of stories. They're set up with stories and then tool tips at the end. So very nice. This version, Parenting Tools, and then she's just came out with this version for teachers. So so very nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything particularly that you wanted to introduce before we get started with the questions? Any introduction to setting limits that you think is important to state up front? Or do you think?
Well, I mean, to me, I was thinking about that of like what to me is the most important part of setting the limits. And it all comes back to the environment. It really does. I mean, when you think of it, it's from the very beginning, setting up an environment where the limit's already in the environment. You know, we always talk about us being the curator of the environment. And so I like to look at it really as if we, from the beginning, set up an environment that is going to allow the child to do certain things without us always having to be behind them and, you know, telling them not to touch something or having to go get something for them. That to me is already teaching them about limits in a very natural way. So it really, a lot of it comes back to the environment.
Yeah, I like that, because I think parents often say, oh, you know, they just want my mobile phone all the time. And so you can change the environment, have a place out of reach where you put your mobile phone so that you're not always playing with it and they want to take it out of your hands. Or If they're banging on a glass cabinet, are you going to keep the glass cabinet there and have to set that limit? Or maybe there's a place that it's really dangerous and you want to take it out of the space entirely. Or if they're climbing up on the table and you really don't want them to climb on the table anymore, you take the chairs away so they can't get onto the table. So I think that can be a really good one. And the other thing I think that comes with setting limits is sometimes I don't think we're clear on what the limits are to start with. So having a few, not too many, rules in place can be really useful, because then you're all on the same page. Every parent, like your partner might parent differently to you, but at least if you have the ground rules agreed, then that means you can come and from the same place and support each other as well with that, don't you think?
Totally that. And also, you know, sometimes like questioning why you're wanting to set certain limits. Like there's to me, there's oftentimes like this need for us to want to control everything, and I think sometimes we need to take a step back and just like, oh, this is a need that my child has, like, you know, like you mentioned climbing. So yes, you know, climbing onto the table is not something that I would want in my house, and you know, some other homes might be okay with that. So I'm going to do something in the environment where that's not going to be a possibility. But at the same time, I need to understand that my child needs to climb. So it's not about, you know, having these limits where you're just very matter-of-factly, you know, kind of wanting to control it. But you have to question sometimes yourself, like, okay, what is my child really asking for here, and how can I support my child? And okay, so let's go to the park and go climb, or that it's really sometimes being aware that it's not just about setting limits for the sake of setting limits, but it's also realizing what their needs are, and being able to suffice to those needs.
And then the only thing I think is also worth reiterating is that some people think that Montessori is very much laissez-faire, let the children do whatever they like. And actually that then becomes permissive parenting. So we have to be careful not to give parents free rein to say, oh, that's what my child needs, so I'll let them, paint all over the walls and this kind of thing. I'm very much like, I need to find a middle place, and Montessori very much comes from the middle. There are too many rules and the child's going to rebel, and too few rules and they become very entitled, and it often crosses our boundary, which means that then we end up yelling. We go from very passive to yell, where I find, like, if I set a limit early, when something's making me feel uncomfortable, then it's in a much better place. So that's something to also keep in mind, huh?
Definitely. No, definitely being aware of what triggers you too. What like, if there's something that really annoys you, whether it makes sense, or not, to me, it's important to, to understand that, to be aware of it, and to be mindful of, okay, so this really bothers me, and how am I going to make sure that I can have my needs met? For example, I mean, I'm thinking of, for example, for me, and I'm not sure if this goes into limits, but it kind of does. For me, like, table etiquette is very important. And that's just the way I grew up. It was extremely important to my mother. She was very strict about it. And, for her, it was important that we would be able to sit at anyone's table. She called it a passe-partout, meaning that we were able to sit at the table with peasants, and we were able to sit at the table with kings and queens. Not that I ever did, but it's this notion of table etiquette is important to be able to fit in whatever circumstance you're in. So that could be kind of a weird, like, thing that I'm going to pick on or set limits. But to me, I have explained that to my children, that it is important. And instead of at a young age being like picky about it and all of this, it's about setting the stage for it and modeling all of those. And really, so if there's something that is really important to you and dear to you, be very mindful that you are doing those, that you are modeling those things, because your children will learn a lot better from just watching you than being reminded not to put their elbow on the table or to close their mouth when they're chew and all of that. So it's really about the most important, is really that environment, like I was saying at the beginning, and then us. I mean, we're part of the environment, so we need to really model it as much as possible.
Yeah, like, if you don't want kids to sit on the table, don't sit on the table yourself is a very clear example.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's time that we dive straight into our questions. We've had some sent in before the show, which we'll start with.
Oh, good. Okay.
You can also post questions in the chat box. If you are on a mobile phone, you may not see the chat box, so you'll need to jump on a laptop or a PC to join in that conversation. But we had one left over, two from the May call. And the first one was from Caroline. And she says, my 2-year-old, who is advanced in speaking, keeps telling me about different things that she sees. I want to break that, she says, or I want to hurt that. I'm not sure how to react to it. It can be absolutely random things. Like, we went for a walk and saw a gardener working on some flowers, and she said, I want to break the flowers.
So there I mean, to me, it sounds like more of a expressive, like a language issue? Is it really I want to break the flowers, or is it that I want to pick the flowers? So, depending, yes, it sounds like she's very advanced in her verbal skills, but is it the right word? Like, are we understanding? So I think, to that parent, I would really suggest, like, not making a big deal about this hurt, and that thinking that our child is mean, or wanting to hurt other things, but maybe digging a little deeper, like, oh, are you wanting to pick the flowers so that we can make a bouquet? Are you wanting to dig? So, there's plenty of words that could be replaced by I want to hurt. So there might be just something more about expressing the right thought, is where I would see, unless there has been kind of some tendencies to actually hurt and to actually hit or do
so
things
in
like
the
that.
second part, it does say she's also trying to pinch and hurt me deliberately, telling me want to hurt mummy. So she is often looking, obviously, to find out what does hurt mean, and I think it might need to have some clear boundaries, like, I can't let you hurt me, or if she starts to break the flower, I can't let you hurt the flower, but if you want to cut the flower, we can do this.
Exactly. And then being aware, and this is part of the whole positive discipline too, is that oftentimes our children are having a certain behavior that is really just a kind of a misguided way of them saying, pay attention to me. And that could just be, to be thinking about, like, what has maybe changed in your routines recently. Has there been where you've maybe had spending a little less time with her, or so kind of looking at maybe some changes that might have happened. And yes, those are boundaries, like, I cannot let you hurt me, that I cannot let you pinch me, that hurts and I don't like it. So that it's really understanding if there's a real need to work with the hands. Again, we've talked about this, is let's start making some bread, like let's have some, again, the environment, work through work, we're going to be able to calm the child. But definitely, they're going to go through stages where they're going to want to experiment with their power, with their, hey, she just figured out that she can hurt. That is like pretty powerful news. Like, I can do something to somebody else and have a reaction. So let's encourage those reactions, but maybe instead of a pinch, it's like, ooh, I don't like those hurt. I much prefer a hug. Can we hug? So that you're still giving her that physical attention that she's asking for, but in a positive way.
Yeah, I totally agree. I liked how you said, oh yeah, like what's she actually needing right now? And if she wants attention, I'll offer you a hug. So you just have to be quite clear. The other thing I think that sometimes can happen, and it's completely innocent, is that you're doing rough play games and this play biting and this kind of thing. And all of a sudden they think it's okay to bite and to pinch. So I guess I'd also check, like, is she seeing that in her environment somewhere, just to make sure that that's very clear, that that's
right.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm sorry, I'm just looking at some of these images. I don't know if you can see this, but this notion of the iceberg, of how at the very tippy top, with what is coming out of the water, the part of the iceberg that we see is tiny compared to what is underneath the water. And so what all you're seeing is just the pinching, but what is going on below the surface that is making her want to have this attention. So, for example, this is the one that I showed, is undue attention. So this child is probably thinking, so this is what a misguided, thought of oneself is, that I belong only when you pay constant attention to me and or give me special service. So if if the child is pinching you, you're giving her attention. That's what she's asking for. So what she's really saying is, notice me, involve me usefully. So this is a great, again, a great way to involve them in the environment, to involve them in purposeful activities, and to give her options as to what would be preferable than pinching, such as a hug or doing something else. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, cool. So let's move on to the next one. And we don't actually have her name because it was from the call, but she says, I'm wondering how to discipline my daughter to listen to me. It says, laughing out loud. When she gets frustrated with things, she throws and screams, and she can be really a handful. Sorry. Oh, yeah, that was because we weren't talking about that last week. Yeah, so last month. So this is screaming, throwing, and yeah, when she gets very frustrated when she's trying to get her daughter to listen to her.
So, great question. And I don't know if you remember when we talked about the brain in the palm of the hand, and really this understanding, and Tina Payne Bryson and Dan Siegel talk a lot about it in The Whole Brain Child, is this understanding that when that child is frustrated, who knows why? There's a smell, there's a toy that's green instead of yellow. I mean, who knows what triggered this thing? Their brain is no longer, the other day I saw this expression online, which made total sense. Like, her brain is no longer online, like there's no Wi-Fi connection, right? So trying to communicate with this child when she's frustrated, it's better to just hold your tongue, let it go through, let her know that you are there, that there is nothing wrong, and that you are there, and that you love her, and that when she needs if she needs a hug, you are there for her. And I know, this sounds kind of counterintuitive, like, wait a minute, my child is having a full-blown tantrum and throwing things, and I'm offering hugs. But yes, it means it is a way to bring them back, to calm them down, to bring them back online, so that so that the right brain, which is, completely disconnected and not even connected to itself, which is that emotional brain, needs to come back and be connected back before the left brain, which is our rational, us trying to explain, trying to come up with solutions, they can talk to each other. But before this right brain is back to being calm, you're not going to get through to her. And it's probably going to annoy her even more and irritate her even more. So it's really about protecting yourself sometimes, because, sometimes we need to look at what it's doing to us. So if that's really triggering you, and, it's hard for you to watch or be there, if you feel that your child can be left alone for 15 seconds or a little bit more while you step out of the room to take a deep breath, to kind of recenter and go, okay, this is a young child who is disconnected from their emotion. I'm here to guide them and to be their support and to ground them. You ground yourself, and then you go back into the room, and you can very well tell this child, I'm having a really hard time being in the same room with you right now. I'm going to step out and calm down, and then I'll be able to help you. And just, kind of just say it, do it, whatever needs to be, so that you can be calm, so you can bring them back to a calmer place. But, there's no real solution to stopping that kind of blowout, because it's their brain is going through so much, and sometimes it just has a hard time processing some of this. So we need to be the grounding force.
Yeah. I think it leads in quite well to Morven, who's on the call at the moment. And she kind of said that she's interested in finding out some alternatives to threats and bribes. So it's engaging cooperation. So this mum, the original question was, I'm trying to get her to listen to me. And then she starts, screaming and shouting or whatever she does. And I guess how can you do it without threatening, bribing, and to getting them to listen? Is this engaging cooperation in different ways?
Right. And to me, I mean, there's, for one, I would love that we kind of put aside all of those bribes, tools aside, like just get rid of them. Don't even consider them. Like that is old school. Yes, they might work in the immediate, but they're not teaching our children long-term skills. So, it always comes back to, what are your long-term priorities? It's not sometimes, I mean, parenting to me is about looking towards where do we want to go? Where do we want to be 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now? What kind of young adults do we want to be engaged with 20 years down the road? So it's really about, really thinking about that long-term goal, so that when you are in a place where you are wanting to discipline or have cooperation, if you can remember what that long-term goal is, will really help you deal with the moment. Because like the bribes and punishment, yes, they're going to work in the immediacy, and you might get cooperation right now. But is it really going to be long-term about, being a problem solver, finding solutions, being independent, being cooperative, all of that? Or is it going to be just, you listen to what you're told and so forth? So there's that part. There's first, kind of our mindset of really looking and thinking more about the future. And then the getting the cooperation, I mean, it depends on the age. So Morphin, I'm not sure how old your child is. Before 3, it's a little complex because they just don't have that rational mind. So it's really more about, coming down to their level, looking at them and just letting them know exactly what you're needing from them and how can I help you, and really, be really down at their level, looking at them straight in their eyes. And then the other part is just kind of planning a little bit ahead. So letting them know ahead of time what it is that you're expecting from them, and letting them know what the routine is going to be that morning. I think if they have a little bit information ahead of time, it definitely is helpful. And also when you are, kind of planning ahead, let them know what the consequence is if what they're being asked doesn't happen. Like what are you going to do, and make sure to follow through. And this does not need to be a threat. It's just about, let's take the example of not wanting to put on your shoes. Well, we're going to the park and we need to put our shoes, what do we need to put on our feet to be able to go to the park? Oh, socks and shoes. Okay. I am going to be ready to go, after you put your toys away and put on your socks and shoes. But know that if we don't put our socks and shoes, then we're not going to have time to go to the park, and won't go to the park today. Like, that's not a big deal. That's just what happens. So but you need to be consistent so to me, it could sound a little bit like a threat, but it's just more of a natural consequence of, if we're not doing these certain actions, then we don't get the result. Is that making sense?
Yes, totally.
Okay.
I'm just typing a note that we will send the replay, because there's one mum who's still got her kids awake. Yes, we'll send
Okay.
send a replay. That doesn't say a replay.
Yeah, okay. And the replays are always on you can go back and watch some of the older shows too on the YouTube channel, the Montessori show. As soon as we're done, they need a little bit of time to buffer, but then they're usually on the channel right away.
So a big hello to Kaylin and to Eva from Austria. So she's going to try and watch some, and then she can watch the replay for the bits she misses. I also had some thoughts about getting engagement and cooperation from your kids. And I mean, often, like you said, giving simple choices or getting them to think is really like getting them involved in what's going to happen. So do you want to wear the red shirt or the blue shirt? You know, very simple age appropriate choices can engage their cooperation. And I would never underestimate talking to your child about something that's going on. So there's a mum who's come into class who was saying that she has having difficulty picking up her daughter from creche at the moment. And that she's really crying and not wanting to leave and not listening, right? And so I said, it probably wouldn't hurt for you to then make a plan at a neutral moment. Okay, you know how at the moment, you know, mummy's having to drag you out of the nursery and you're really crying. It would be really nice if we could come to where you're stressed and I'm stressed. It'd be nice if we could come up with a plan. And the child's 3, but you can still talk to them, write down some ideas. You know, maybe you're coming up with all the ideas, but you're setting in place this problem solving attitude that will go forward as the kids get bigger as well. And you kind of have them on board. So do you think it would be useful then if I gave you a warning that I'm going to sit down with you for 5 minutes and then we're going to go, or how many activities you'll have time to do before we leave, or that I get out your toy from my bag and that's the sign that we're leaving. You know, so actually coming up with a plan with her to get the child involved, I find is really good. Even going back to setting up the environment, like you said, like if you have the shoes always in the same place as they're going to leave the house, it helps with the whole, you know, cooperation, because you can say, oh, what do you need and where are they? And they can go and get them themselves, rather than sometimes we take them off in the living room, sometimes we take them off in the bedroom, sometimes we take them off by the door. It makes it very much harder to get their cooperation because it's not clear.
Yeah, and
keep things as simple as possible.
And just a thought on the story about the creche that you mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
It reminds me so much of a story that I often share about how when I would have to pick up my son at daycare, you know, I had had a busy day and I was kind of rushing to get home, and I would rush to get him, and it was a struggle every day because he just, you know, wasn't on my schedule. And the moment that I realized, and you know, thanks Positive Discipline and the mentor group and everything, was that I needed to take time to just connect with him. So, you know, to me, it's also about us slowing down, that we tend to be on this very do schedule, and, you know, got to get going and it's time to go, and, you know, rushing around. So maybe taking an extra, you know, 5 minutes at the creche to maybe sit down and watch your child do whatever they're doing, and not be in this energy of fretting of, you know, having to go. And this just adding also the fact that sometimes when we are ourselves transitioning from one job to the other. So I don't know about this mom, if you know, what she's doing before picking her child up at the creche, but maybe she needs 2 or 3 minutes to kind of, you know, recenter herself and kind of transition from whatever she was doing earlier to now entering the creche and kind of coming into this, you know, next job, which is our other full-time job, is parenting, and having a transition for herself as well, so that her cup is full when she goes in to meet her child and reconnect with her child.
Yeah, I know that she does try and allow 10 minutes to sit with him, sit with her and that kind of thing. But I think maybe she's not present actually in that 10 minutes. You know, if you're running through the list of things you need to do when you get home, or you haven't quite finished off, oh, I still need to see that email when I get home, they're going to still pick it up. So yeah, I think that's really nice that she might need a transition so that she can really be present. And that will also change the dynamic a little bit, hopefully. Yeah, that's really nice. Another one I used with my kids a lot when they were smaller is to say just one word. So rather than nagging and saying, have you got your shoes on? Why have you got your shoes on? And what do we, you know, and lots of words, is I just say like one word, and possibly really quietly, like shoes. And then they're like, what? Oh yeah, I need to get my shoes. And so that kind of can be much more, much nicer. And I also tell a story about, we were trying to leave the house and we have a very small hallway where everyone was putting their shoes on. And my son just said to me, and he was probably like 6 or 8 years old, Mum, laces. And I'm like, what does he mean laces? I looked down and I was standing on his lace. And so it was actually a very respectful way for him to tell me, oh, Mum, you're standing on my laces, or something like that. So I thought it was kind of sweet. They actually pick that kind of stuff up as well.
And I'm sorry, but Simone, that's a very good point. You know, this we tend to overtalk everything. We tend to go into very long-winded explanations of, you know, why we need to put our shoes on and da 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 da. It's like, just to the point. So it's a very good point. Like, we'll have plenty of time to have long-winded conversations, but at this age, it's like, go, you know, it's very, we need to be very direct. So yes, very good point.
And the other thing is I think they pick up any doubt that we have. So if I say, should we put our shoes on? Or I'm like, you're worried that they're going to do it or not do it? They pick it up and then they'll just resist. So you kind of just need a very clear, oh, we're going to get our shoes. You know, you're moving in this direction. They're looking for someone who's going to lead them. You don't want to be
Yes.
bossy, but you definitely need to have like some leadership skills, I think, with toddlers. To get them out the door. And then the other one that works really well, which we used again in class today, is those kids who do not want to leave class because they're having too much fun. I'm like, you really wanted to play with that? I'm going to draw a picture on my notepad. Yeah, it looks like this. And then you'll remember that this is the one that you wanted to play with when you came back. And here's your piece of paper. Here, you hold that one. I'll hold this one. Okay. And they walk out with this piece of paper in their hand. And just because it works, because they feel acknowledged. I'm really acknowledging their feeling. You really want that. And it's so important that I'm writing it on my piece of paper.
Yeah.
So it's not really a trick, but it's just another way I think that parents can like slow down, take the time to write it on a piece of paper. If it's like, oh, we can't get to the park, it's raining, but you really want to go to the park, let me write it on the paper. You write down park, and then when you actually get to go to the park later, you go, oh, we can cross this off now. And then they know that when they say something, you actually listen and you remember and you take it seriously.
Yeah, no, and you know, you said the word is acknowledging what they're wanting, because I think oftentimes these little people kind of get you know, kind of taken here and there in all of this, and sometimes we need to kind of take time to like really connect and see what their needs and what they're wanting. So I love that.
Yeah. So Morgan,
Yeah.
I hope that gives you some ideas of how to avoid those threats and bribes. And I'm sure there'll come up some more ideas as we go through some of these other questions as well. Are you ready for the next one?
Yes.
Okay. So this one is from Rebecca, and her son is 2.4 years old. He's especially focused and communicative about what he wants. We feel this makes him quite demanding, both a blessing and a challenge. Yes, indeed. We do our best to respond to his unmet demands with acknowledgement and acceptance, but he has recently and quite confidently started telling us to stop it, Mum and Dad, when we do. Not in a mean way, more a matter of fact. For a while, acknowledging, accepting was working so well, but it seems now he's just realized this tactic means he's definitely not going to get what he wants. He just tells us to stop it and gets increasingly upset. So now we're stuck. Any suggestions?
So from what I'm understanding, he's wanting something that the parent is not able to give at that time or do, and they've used the acknowledgement so far, but he has figured out that when you start talking that way, it's going to end with no. So this child is very smart, and he's figured it out. And I think for me, it's important, you know, to do like what you were saying, Simone, is that you're still the leader. It's like, yes, I see you're really upset, and you know, and it is not time to go to the park. It's 9 o'clock at night, and it's time to go to bed. And you know, really being firm about, you know, what it is that you're wanting to happen. And he's going to get upset, and that's okay. You know, I think we need to be okay with our children being upset. This is just part of their self-construction. It's as long, to me, as they're not hurting themselves, they're not hurting somebody. If they need to have a good cry, then, you know, let them. I think that is just, it's what they need to go through. You know, I go through it, you know, at my age, some days where I'm just upset, and I just need to go through it. Imagine if somebody were telling me, like, you know, I can't be upset. That would be even more upsetting. So it's just, you know, for me, it's to continue to stay firm. Maybe the whole acknowledgement thing is, you know, maybe like listen to yourself. Are you talking too much? Is it going on too much? You know, so there might be a little bit of that where he's just saying, okay, enough. And also he's figured out that it ends up being no. So being aware of that, and then just, you know, staying firm with what needs to happen, and he's going to learn that you mean what you say, and that you are in charge, and you know, that's part of that whole, you know, process of the different levels of obedience, and just learning that you know, this person that I am obeying has my best interest. So they end up learning that, and they end up having that respect for, okay, you know, I am going to learn to listen. And you know, 2.5 is still a tough one where they're not very rational. So that's, you know, that's still a tough one.
There's one thing that she said as well that is very interesting. It says, it seems that now he's realized that tactic means he's definitely not going to get what he wants. When she uses the word tactic, it's actually not a connection then. It's, okay, I'm going to use this really nice way to say no. But actually, tactic makes, it all comes from like where we're coming from. And so actually, I don't want him to just stop. I actually want to acknowledge his feeling because I really care. And I really want to sit with him for as long as that takes. So I think that maybe that's what needs to come across a little bit more than, I've acknowledged his feelings and now why hasn't he calmed down? It's like, it might take 15 minutes to acknowledge his feelings. Let them out. You're angry, come show me. Yeah, really hit the thing. Not, you're angry and then now let's move on. And I know I'm completely guilty of it because I'm like, okay, I've acknowledged feelings. Now I do very much problem solving. So how are we going to solve the problem? You know, and actually I need to go, let them take that breath and kind of relax. And then, you know, that maybe the left brain's more activated.
Yeah,
but I think they need to sit with that, acknowledging feelings and really supporting and holding that child in that crazy place. Oh yeah, you're saying stop it. No, you're really angry at me because you know that we can't do that. Yeah. And I'm sitting here, I'm going to be here. Yeah. Oh yeah. And now you're throwing your arm up. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Right. And to me, it's being okay with sitting with those feelings as much as they can be very uncomfortable for us. You know, it's important, like you say, to really acknowledge it from a real genuine place of, I acknowledge that you are upset, and like you say, not just a coy to get them to do what we want. So yeah.
Cool. So thanks, Rebecca, for the question. And Veronica, we're currently dealing with, setting limits very often with our almost 3-year-old daughter. I have one question. I'd love to hear your opinion. If the child crosses the limit, how can I show her in that upsetting moment that it's really uncomfortable for me, and that means a clearly stop without using force and a policeman approach? Is that kind of clear? So she's worried about.
Yeah, she's, I mean, it sounds like she's unsure that she's being taken seriously. I mean, do you think that that's what the gist of it is?
I think she doesn't want to use force or kind of be a policeman, be too authoritarian. Is that the one? Right. I always get authoritarian and authoritative mixed up. You know, she doesn't want to be too bossy and forceful, but she wants to show a clear limit. But and also show the child that she's uncomfortable.
Right. So that comes back to that, you know, original point that I did earlier, which is really being clear as to what is the sequence of action. So really being clear of, if this child, you know, pushes you and you're going to be uncomfortable, what are you going to do? You know, and systematically and consistently. So it might just mean that you just acknowledge, like, you've gone too far, and we always want to share this with our children when they are rested, calm, well-fed, and such, right? So these are conversations that we're not having in the moment of upsetness. This is a conversation that we're having at a time when they're at peace, you're at peace, and such. But really letting her know, you know, I have noticed that sometimes I ask you to do something or not to do something, and you still do it, and it makes me upset. It makes my body not feel happy. And so I think that next time that happens, I'm just going to maybe make a sign so that you just come and sit and just take a little break. You know, there's nothing wrong with you or with the situation. It's just that sometimes we just maybe just need to take a break. So I'm just going to ask you to just come sit next to me, so that you're setting up the expectations from the beginning, and you have a very non-punitive consequence. It's not a timeout. It's not, go to your room and think about it. It's just like, let's just take, 5 seconds to take some deep breaths, so that, again, you're helping the child to come back down to, a calmer place, because oftentimes when they're starting to get in the know, or, I want to do it my way or whatever, they're getting a little bit riled up. So we need to just help them have tools for self-regulation. And that's what I, was saying about at the beginning. It's, let's think about the tools that we can give them for long-term growth. This is a time when they are constructing themselves, when they're developing their will, when there's just so much going on. So we need to help them to have tools to be able to deal with these big emotions. So here it would just be, maybe offering to just take a little break. Let's just sit down for a minute. So, again, this is ideal for a parent who is not on a very, fixed schedule and needing to rush out and all of this, because parenting takes time and takes a lot of patience. So I think we need to learn to buffer some time in there for all of that.
Yeah. One of the situations that I thought of when I read the question was kind of like, she's crossed the limit. So it might be something like that she's hit another child, or she's snatched a toy out of the other child's hand, and those kind of situations as well. And if it was a hitting or a biting thing, kind of using my soft hands to physically maybe have to remove them. But you can still set a limit, but with love. And I always feel like, do you remember when we spoke to Jennifer and she was talking about right approach and soft hands?
Yes.
I think when you handle your child and you can use soft hands, you can be very clear, but you're very soft. So that's setting a limit with love.
Right.
So if you have to physically move them, they're on the street and you need to, if they've crossed that limit that they're unsafe, then I would physically keep them safe, as well as being,
Right.
So I'm clear, but I'm soft, clear and soft.
And yeah, which was, always goes back to that firm and kind, of positive discipline. But you're right. I mean, when we are protecting our child from, a dangerous situation, if they're not listening to us and, going off, we have to be physical. I mean, but it's with, like you say, with loving arms. It's like, I'm going to pick you up and I'm going to keep you safe. And you can tell them that. You say, my job is to keep you safe, and I cannot let you do that. And that's it, it's just, but you need to be definitely very firm about those kind of situations.
It might even be, well, a 3-year-old maybe isn't having a nappy changed, but, that they don't want to come and sit at the table to eat or something like this. I probably wouldn't force a child to come to the table. But if it's something that you really, like, you need to leave the playground. Yeah, okay, so say they don't want to leave the playground and she's crossed the limit because she's really running away or something like that. At that point, I really need to set a limit and I need to be clear and firm. So again, I might have to, you can walk to the car or I can pick you up. Okay, I'm picking you up. And I just, sports cars will be going, yeah, you're really pushing me away. You really didn't want to leave the playground and we're leaving. So I think that's another way, maybe just to give some of her more examples of how she can acknowledge their feelings, be sensitive to the child, but still be that leader and taking charge of the situation.
Yeah, and this will, again, and I'm sorry to repeat myself, but that will also be a lot more effective if you've talked about it before going to the park. So on your way to the park, remind her, like, and on a daily basis, we sound like a broken record, but they need to hear us over and over again. So just remind her that when it's time to go to the park, we will choose whether you can walk to the car or, skip to the car. And if you do not cooperate, remember, I need to just pick you up because we need to go. And that's it. So, it's, again, so that it doesn't come out of the blue where, you're just picking her up. It's like they have an awareness of what might happen.
Yeah, cool. Oh, more fun questions. This one's from Alexandra. She's not able to join us live on the call, but is going to watch the replay. She would like to know how to set up limits about fighting, physically hitting me or my husband. I don't think that my daughter fights at school. I'm 100% sure she's not. But at home, if she's really upset, she can hit me. No one ever showed her this type of behavior, and my explanations that we don't hit each other doesn't help so far. Thanks very much.
So this is similar to the one earlier, where it's really about being very firm and holding that hand, getting down to their level and letting them know, I cannot let you do that. I cannot let you do that. I know you're upset and I'm here for hugs, but I do not, I do not like being hit, and really, being okay with telling her that. And then maybe having, I really like the idea in our homes to have a place where they can go kind of regroup or center themselves. Jane Nelson calls this the positive timeout, which is really an area, a little area. I mean, it doesn't have to be a full room. It can just be a little pillow, or it can be a corner of the couch, or whatever you decide with the child. But it's a place where when they're starting to feel angry and upset, and we need to be talking to them about this as well, of what is your body feeling? What is your body telling you? Because oftentimes before she's getting upset, before she's, hitting you, her body is definitely giving her some messages. So helping them be aware of what our body language is telling us, and giving them tools so that they can learn to self-regulate, so that when she is starting to feel angry, to step away and go sit on that pillow, or, go put some headphones to listen to, some soft music, or maybe it's a special book, or maybe it's a special stuffed animal, but something to be able to kind of, calm themselves before. So this is, again, a conversation that you would want to have with her when she's calm. I would definitely engage the entire family. So, father, mother, and having this conversation about, we have noticed that sometimes you get really upset and you're wanting to hit. And mommy and daddy don't like being hit. And we love hugs. We're always here for hugs. And, really talking about what is your body telling you before, when you're wanting to hit. And let's find a gentler way that you can, relax. And sometimes it might even, mean having a place to go hit. I mean, some kids need a punching bag. There's pros and cons to that, but I find it kind of good to be able to get out that energy. My son used to say, I need to go run, and he would go in the backyard and run 10 times around the tree, and that calmed him. So whatever your child knows is going to calm them is what you need to be offering.
And it does take a lot of consistency. You might need to say quite a few times, I can't let you hit. But as long as you just are super consistent, the message will get across. I mean, I also really thought also about relaxing their nervous system. So is it certain times of day? And is there ways that you can, maybe do some deep massage? Like that hitting might be something to do with that. And also, I have been in class once where a kid was being a bit aggressive, and there's a pillow sitting there, and I'm like, hey, come show me. Look, I'm banging the pillow. Oh, it's really fun. And he just looked at me like this, and like the whole thing stopped. But, you're showing them there, if you need to get stuff out, like your son running, like just you can get this out on the pillow, and then we can have the cuddle, I think it's a clear message. I think it's okay. Yeah, definitely. And
I was going to say, and just remembering too, that this hitting is not just hitting. It's a message that she's trying to tell you of, pay attention to me, involve me, all of that. So being mindful to not always look at just that one action, but what's below the surface, what has instigated this to, and how can we modify? Maybe she's just needing a little bit more one-on-one time. Maybe she's wanting to be involved more in what you're doing in the home at that time of day. So just kind of being aware that there's always a reason for the behavior, and it's up to us to kind of dig a little deeper to figure that one out.
Or even, I didn't like that choice that you made for me, like that you set that limit, that I couldn't do that thing. I'm going to hit you for that.
Exactly.
But I think the hardest one that parents have is when they hit you and then they laugh because they know they're going to wind you up. And that can be really hard to like, oh, you're laughing. And yeah, I don't like it when you laugh. It makes it feel like it's not even because you've lost control. It's because you think it's funny to hit,
Right. And that, that's the work that we need to do on ourselves as parents. It's like, what is that triggering in us? If ever you've listened or watched some of Dr. Shefali's work of how, she talks a lot about sometimes it's also looking like what is it triggering in us as our own kind of childhood. And I think our children bring up a lot of things to us, and sometimes it's being aware of that it's not just that one action, but it's so much of other things that trigger us really, and that makes us more upset than we need to be.
Yeah, the thing I got from the conscious parent was parenting is a spiritual journey for ourselves.
Well, it's funny you say that, because to me, a lot of her work, I am often reminded of Montessori's writing about the spiritual preparation of the adult, how it is a real work on oneself to be. I mean, you do it every day being with all these little humans. Like that's a real spiritual preparation for you to be calm and zen and all giving to them. So, there is a lot of work that we need to do on ourselves, I think.
Yeah, I love it because they teach us things every day. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got 2 more questions. I'm just going to keep an eye on the time. We've got 10 minutes left. Amanda's got a question about some siblings, which I think we should still deal with. And then Ava has one on the chat room about sleep. So we'll look at those 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sibling, what is there a specific question about siblings?
Yeah, it's to do with sharing. I know we did do some siblings last call, but I think this parent, she's struggling quite a lot at the moment. So I think it would be useful for her to, it says that she's at home all day with her little ones. Her boy's 3.5 and her girl's 21 months. Her boy still seems extremely jealous of anything her daughter has, and it drives her nuts. And she's trying to say we have to share, and this week they're trying to say you can have your turn when she's done, but then each of them are really struggling with that as well. So once that, they're even like kind of drawing out the amount of time that they're playing with each toy, and she's just personally really struggling. She says she needs some work on herself. She hears that and it gets all the buttons, but yeah, she just is looking for some support. She's like saying, does it just settle after a while? How can both siblings be at peace with the arrangement and playing until it's done, or is there a limit that she should set?
So, words of encouragement. This too shall pass. And this is all part of, again, their self-construction and them establishing a relationship among siblings. So it's important, I think, to remind them daily how grateful we are that they have each other. So really trying to bring out the qualities in each other that the other appreciates. I'm sure that the little one looks up to her brother and such. So just, kind of on a daily, having a really, a ritual of gratitude, a habit of gratitude for each other. And this isn't forced, because that they love each other. That they yes, they bicker over toys, but they also, when one's not around, they look for each other and they really enjoy each other. So there's that. There's also the fact that, and this I just learned, actually, I was interviewing Dr. Laura Markham, who actually wrote, I think it's Peaceful Parents. It's about siblings, but she was sharing with me how the closer in age, and if it is the same gender, that sibling rivalry might be a little bit more intense. So here, it sounds like they're pretty close in age, but it's boy girl. Here, to me, what's important is, for one, is to be mindful if the older child's needs of quality time with each parent are being met. This is a tough transition for them. They were the only ones for a long, for 2 years, and they want that relationship with both mom and dad. So, you're home alone with them, and that's hard, but maybe when the 20-month-old goes for a nap or something, have like really special time with the older one. And then the other thing is really, again, coming up with solutions together. So this might be, a somewhat of a family meeting. I wouldn't get too formal in a family meeting at this young of age, but really having a conversation when you're, all sitting on the floor together and saying, I've noticed that sometimes you have a hard time, with each other playing with toys. And really helping them come up with solutions. It's going to be more the older child that's going to come up with solutions at this time, and that's okay. Just really acknowledge those solutions and maybe try some of those out so that he is part of the solution. I wouldn't force sharing. Sharing is something that will come with time. I like the fact that you are acknowledging and saying, well, when it looks like your sister is having fun with that right now, and when she's done, you can play with it, and let's find something else for you to play with now. So, again, giving him choices. And then, sometimes I think as parents, we need to learn to give them time to figure out their own situation. Like, I think that we're sometimes a little too quick to want to jump in and be the, kind of fix it all. Sometimes they just need time to figure out and pull the toy from each other and such. I mean, to me, as long as they're not hurting each other, they're going to figure these skills out. And you can be definitely, broadcasting and saying, oh, looks like you two are having a hard time figuring out who wants to play with this one. And that's it. Don't, go, oh, it's your turn. Like, let them try to figure it out.
Yeah, I think that gives her a lot of ideas. Thanks, Jeanne-Marie.
Mm-hmm.
There's one more sneaky question after Eva's question. So there's two. Okay. Just to give you a heads up. Okay. So the next one is from Ava, who's on the call tonight, and she has a question about bedtime. Her older daughter is turning 4 in September, and she really doesn't like going to bed, or rather, she doesn't want to accept when we're finished reading her stories and it's time to turn off the light. Any ideas how we can make it easier for her, or rather how we can get her to accept that the day is over and that her parents really want a bit of an evening at some point? I giggled because I can empathize with that. Sorry.
So to me, that is really incorporating her in the bedtime routine. So this is a perfect example of possibly creating a little, simple routine chart about going to bed. And this is something, again, that you do with her, so that there is really the story of all the different steps, and that, after that last book, it's a kiss and it's good night. And that, you will get to read another book with mommy in the morning, or, cuddle with her or whatever. And there, it might be a nice idea to do it with, a little sequence of photographs, so that it's a little, almost like a little book that you could make with these, so that it's, again, is just this notion that she's helping you create this. and that it is her routine, and there are all photos of her doing all of these things, and that the part of the story in that is that, we have a good sleep so that mommy and daddy have a good sleep, and maybe have a picture of mommy and daddy, asleep on their pillow, whatever. But it's just kind of that understanding of, she's probably like wondering, like, what's going on? Why am I being, left alone in my room? Like, so she just needs a little bit more information to feel secure that it's all good, and that, when it's daylight, then we can, go cuddle with mommy and daddy, or whatever it is, would be the next step.
Yeah, and I think the only thing that I also thought of is that a 4-year-old doesn't automatically fall asleep as soon as you leave the room. So giving her permission, like, I'm leaving the room now and you're welcome to keep reading and turn out your light when you're done, that kind of thing is just very clear. And it's going to be a little bit difficult for the first time, but she'll get it. And it's just, again, being clear, that's going to be the end. Yeah, I like that.
And that, and so that could be incorporated into that little story.
Like, what is it you like to do? You want to cuddle your teddies, or
exactly. So there could be a picture of mom giving a kiss after that book, but then she's still up, and then the last picture is maybe her switching the light off on her own. So, but that's something that a 4-year-old is going to help you determine what are all the steps that are needed for everybody to have a good, restful sleep.
Yeah. So our question from Jacqueline, I thought, was a really good one, because it's about food throwing. So how do I respond when my 18-month-old throws food at dinner? We try to have her clean up after dinner, and we've tried giving her balls to throw when she starts. Should we be stopping dinner when she starts?
So my question would be, how much food does she have in her plate? Would be my first one, because oftentimes there tends to be a little bit too much, and what am I going to do with this extra food? Well, I'm going to throw it. So, I would look at that, kind of, maybe having her serve herself little bits by little bits. And then this is, again, another one of this too shall pass. And at the minute that she does start throwing food, her dinner time is definitely over. Like, are you telling me you're done? And you just take all of the, possible food throwing away from her. If she's able to still be at the table with you, then that's fine. If not, I would let her get down and be done. But that to me is like, it's a real strict boundary of, food is not for throwing. And if you throw food, then I take it away and we're done with dinner. I mean, would that be what you would suggest too, Simone?
Yeah, and I don't do it there's a difference between that and a threat. We're like, if you throw again, I'm going to take it away. It's kind of like, from your intention, oh, you're throwing now, you're telling me you're done. Here, let's take it to the table. So you can kind of do it gently without being ruffled, because as soon as you get the reaction, like, oh, you're throwing your food again, that kind of thing. I don't think I need to involve balls in that moment and that kind of thing. I would also just teach her maybe a simple sign like, oh, you're telling me you're all done. We say, all done. And yeah, definitely limiting the amount of food if they're going through a throwing phase is very useful.
Yeah. And this can, again, be like all the other ones, is a story before of, what do we do with our food? Oh, we put it in our mouth. What happens if we throw food? Throwing food means we're all done. So that, again, she knows ahead of time that, it doesn't come out of the blue that you're just taking her plate away and you're all done. You've warned her of what the expectations is. If I see you throwing food, it means to me that you are done, and we'll be done with dinner, so that she knows ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, and at 18 months, you may find you have to repeat this process for until the message gets through. Yeah, exactly. A lot. And then, hey, come, let's go and take the plate to the kitchen. Kaylin just asked if we could remind her what our suggestions were if a child hits and then laughs. Do you remember what you said?
Well, to me, it's really important to stay firm and consistent, and not, I mean, sometimes we kind of want to giggle ourselves, but we have to try not to. But it's are you are you, to me, I mean, to me, a child that's hits and laughs is more like, are you wanting a hug? Like it's something else that's going on. I don't remember specifically what we said about laughing, other than to me, it would be something that would trigger me deeply, because I would feel like, oh, this is being really disrespectful and all of this, when we need to learn to not take these things so personally, that this is just another way of them kind of testing those boundaries. So it's really just staying firm and saying, I can't let you hit me. And just, being very, very firm and matter of fact about it.
I think that's a good place to leave it, because it comes almost full circle back to how we started, so being clear about it, but also like, why are they hitting you? And if they're laughing, it's to get some connection, actually.
Exactly.
And attention. So it's like, oh, are you finding it funny to hit me? Oh, mummy prefers cuddles, and that kind of thing. So a full circle today.
Yes.
Thank you everyone for joining us on the call. We've had lovely questions from the people in the chat room. I love hanging out with you, Jeanne-Marie, online, and I'm looking forward to our next call, which is going to be, do you know the date?
So it is going to be Friday, July 28th, which is the last Friday of July. And Simone and I will actually be together in person attending the International Montessori Congress in Prague. So I guess we can probably keep it this time, which is, you have the same time zone as Prague, I would assume, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we'll send out the details the week before the call, just to confirm the time of the call, and we'll be taking your questions live. Hopefully we'll find some Wi-Fi somewhere, and it's going to be hilarious.
Yes,
Really looking forward to it. And do you remember how Jeanne-Marie was talking about her table etiquette? I am going to be checking it out in person. Thank you everyone for joining us on tonight's call, and we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.
Yes, bye-bye.